Okay, so let's do a little thought experiment. You've just done a very, very bad thing. A capital B bad thing. The kind of thing that gets your face on TV, and not in a good way, like you won the lottery. No, this is the other way. You need to disappear. You need to become a ghost. What's your plan? Fake passport and a new life in a country with no extradition treaty? A remote cabin in the mountains where you live off the land and befriend a squirrel named Squeaky. Those are okay plans. They're not great, but they show you've at least seen a movie. You get a C+ for effort. Here's what you don't do. You don't join the circus. You don't put on a giant red nose, a rainbow wig, and shoes the size of small boats, and hide in what is essentially a rolling festival of noise, strangers, and fried dough on a stick. This is not a good plan. This is a plan a child would make, and then another, slightly smarter child would say, "No, Kevin, that's a terrible plan. They will find you immediately." Also, you're afraid of clowns. And yet, in 1965, this was a real plan that a real person did, and somehow it almost worked. To understand why a human being would think this was a viable course of action, we have to go back 4 years. Back to a humid, sticky night in Houston, Texas, a city built on oil and ambition. A city that was about to have a very, very weird crime problem. A problem that would involve murder, drag queens, the death penalty, a truly spectacular amount of legal incompetence, and a nickname that sounds like a terrible indie band you'd see at an open mic night. The Beatnik Killers. Houston in 1961 was a city with a split personality. On one hand, you have NASA, literally strapping men to rockets and shooting them at the moon. The future, very impressive. On the other hand, you have the Beatniks. These were the original hipsters. They liked poetry, bongos, black turtlenecks, and looking vaguely disappointed in everything. They were basically the human equivalent of a sigh. They were everything that buttoned-down, church-going, football-loving Texas was not. And Texas, as a general rule, does not enjoy things that it is not. It's a state with very little chill. In this world of smoky coffee shops and existential dread, we meet our main characters. First, there's Carolyn Lima. She's 18 years old, and from what we can gather, she was into all the things your parents warned you about. She was a rebel, looking for a cause, or at least something interesting to do on a Tuesday. She had that restless energy of someone who knows they're meant for something more. Then there's Leslie Douglas Ashley. Leslie was 23, and he was living a double life that would make a superhero tired. By day, he was a regular guy, probably holding down a regular, boring job. But by night, he was Cookie Lamont, a captivating and popular drag performer in Houston's burgeoning and very much illegal gay scene. Being a drag queen in 1961 Texas was not just a performance, it was an act of defiance. It was dangerous. The police were not fans. The general public was definitely not fans. But in the small, hidden corners of the city, Cookie was a star. So, to recap our cast, we have a rebellious beatnik girl and a charismatic drag queen. This is already more interesting than most people's entire family tree. And on February 6, 1961, their lives are about to get a lot more interesting. In a bad way. The kind of interesting that involves police sirens. They have a business meeting with a realtor at his office at night. And the business, according to court documents that I promise you are real, was a prearranged sexual encounter. Now, I'm not a realtor, but I'm pretty sure that's not covered in the Zillow Premier Agent training. That is not a standard line item. You don't get a commission on that. This was a business deal that was about to have some serious and very literal closing costs. So the meeting goes poorly. And by poorly, I mean the realtor, a man named Fred Tones, ends up shot 6 times, which is by any measure a bad meeting. A 1-star review on Yelp for sure. Did not get the house, did get shot, would not recommend. Then, because they were apparently trying to win a gold medal in the Bad Decisions Olympics, they set his body on fire. Inside the office. This is not a subtle crime. This is not a who could have done it Agatha Christie mystery. This is a crime that screams, "Hello, police. We have done a crime over here. Please follow the trail of smoke and poor life choices." Having successfully failed to cover their tracks in any meaningful way, they do the next logical thing. They steal the dead man's Lincoln Continental and begin what can only be described as the world's most ill-advised road trip. First, they drive from Houston to Galveston, which is like running from the cops by going to their favorite donut shop. It's right there. It's the first place they'd look. It's the vacation spot for the city they just committed a murder in. Then it's on to New Orleans, because when you're on the run for murder, you should definitely go to a city famous for its round-the-clock parties, endless alcohol, and general chaos. It's a great place to visit, but a terrible place to lay low. It's like trying to hide in a marching band during Mardi Gras. It's a city that never sleeps and always remembers your face, especially if it's on a wanted poster. Their final stop is New York City. They probably figured, it's a big city, we'll blend right in, which is what every movie character thinks right before they get caught. They were 2 kids in a stolen luxury car running from a very messy, very obvious murder. The FBI, it turns out, is pretty good at finding people like that. They have a whole department for it. It's the F in FBI. It stands for Findin' People. While they were out there, living their disastrous, off-brand Kerouac fantasy, the Houston press gave them a nickname. And it is a truly, deeply terrible nickname. The Beatnik Killers. It sounds less like a menacing criminal duo and more like a band that exclusively plays poetry slams. It's just not scary. The Night Stalker, scary. Son of Sam, scary. The Beatnik Killers? Sounds like they might snap their fingers at you aggressively. It's the kind of name that makes other criminals say, "Oof, that's rough." But the FBI, who are not impressed by bad nicknames, found them in New York. The Great Escape was over. They were arrested and flown back to Texas, where a very annoyed justice system was waiting for them. They were about to find out that Texas in the 1960s did not have a great sense of humor about murder, or beatniks, or, as we'll see, much of anything really. So they go on trial. And the trial is, to put it mildly, a circus. It's a 3-ring circus of bad lawyering, sensationalist journalism, and 1960s-era panic. The newspapers are going crazy. They're writing headlines that are basically just a string of angry, confused words. My favorite, from a national tabloid, was "Twisted Lives, the bizarre case of those sexed-up kiss-and-kill queers." You can't even be mad, that's just impressive. It's like they were playing Mad Libs with words from a church pamphlet. It's got everything: alliteration, judgment, and a fundamental misunderstanding of several concepts. The prosecution's strategy is simple. Look at these weirdos. They weren't just on trial for murder, they were on trial for being young and different, and for Leslie's side hustle as a fabulous drag queen. The defense claims it was self-defense. The prosecution claims it was cold-blooded murder. But the real star of the show is 1960s prejudice. The prosecutor, a man named Frank Briscoe, who probably ironed his pajamas, keeps bringing up Leslie's drag career. He's not so subtly implying to the jury, which is made up of 12 Texans who probably thought coffee was a bit spicy, that this whole thing is just a consequence of a deviant lifestyle. His closing argument might as well have been, "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I ask you, can we really trust a man who knows how to properly apply false eyelashes?" A man who can walk in heels better than my wife? I think not. It was a different time, a much, much different time. A time when you could be judged for your fashion choices, even when the charge was murder. The jury deliberates for 4 hours, which is barely enough time to decide on lunch, let alone someone's life. They come back. Verdict: guilty. And the punishment for that in 1960s Texas was not a stern talking to. It was death. Both of them, sentenced to die in the electric chair. Carolyn Lima, at 18, is now on track to be the first woman legally executed in Texas in almost 100 years, which is not a fun record to break. That is not something you want to be known for. Leslie is also headed for a date with old Sparky, which is a terrifyingly cheerful name for a machine designed to kill you. It sounds like a friendly dog, not a state-sanctioned murder device. They are sent to death row at the Huntsville Penitentiary, a place famously not known for its sense of humor. And for 2 years, they wait. The execution is set for March 29, 1963. The news crews are there. The prison warden has his serious face on. They've eaten their last meals, which I've always thought was a weird tradition. Like, here's a steak, because in an hour we're going to cook you. They're just hours away from the end. It is, as they say, all over but the shouting. Or in this case, the electrocuting. And then, with just 4 hours to go, a phone rings. And it's the most important phone call in the history of phone calls. A judge, a federal judge, has issued a stay of execution. The lawyers, in a move straight out of a John Grisham novel that he would have rejected for being too unbelievable, had found something. Something the prosecution had been hiding. And this is the part of the story where it goes from a regular true crime tale to a full-blown bat guano crazy legal odyssey. Because the secret they uncovered wasn't just a minor detail. It was a stick of dynamite that was about to blow up the entire case. The Beatnik killers were saved from the chair. But somehow, this is not the craziest part of the story. Not even close. So, what was the big secret? What could possibly be so important that it stops an execution 4 hours before it happens? It turns out the prosecution had been hiding evidence. Like, a lot of it. They had psychiatric reports that could have helped Leslie's case. They had other stuff that supported the self-defense claim. It's like playing poker, but the other guy has 5 aces, and also you're on trial for your life. It's called prosecutorial misconduct, which is a fancy legal term for cheating. And not just regular cheating, but a kind of cheating that is super, super illegal. An appeals court finds out about this and is, shall we say, not pleased. They use a lot of complicated legal words, but the gist of it was, "Are you kidding me? You can't do that." They throw out the death sentences and order new trials. It's a do-over, but this time they'll be tried separately. And this is where their paths split like a choose-your-own-adventure book, where one path leads to freedom and the other leads directly to a circus. Carolyn Lima goes on trial again. This time the jury is like, murder, but maybe not evil murder. The whole death penalty thing seems to have taken the wind out of the prosecution's sails. They convict her of a lesser charge, sentence her to 5 years, and since she's already been on death row for 3 years, she gets out pretty quick. She walks out of prison in 1965, a free woman, and then she just vanishes, disappears from the public record. Good for her. She escaped this crazy story. She got out of the weirdest play ever written. Leslie, on the other hand, is about to get weirder. His lawyers, who are now playing with house money, decide on a new strategy. An absolutely wild, galaxy-brain strategy. They argue that he is legally insane, and their proof? His drag career. Their argument, and I am not making this up, was that any man who wanted to wear a dress and sing songs must be, by definition, insane. They brought in doctors who testified that his desire to be a woman was a sign of a sociopathic personality. And the jury, in 1960s Texas, a group of people who probably thought zippers were a bit flashy, went, "You know what? That makes sense to us." He's declared insane and sent to a state mental hospital. So Leslie is in a mental hospital. End of story, right? No, of course not. This story is never over. He escapes. He just leaves. He walks out of a mental hospital for the criminally insane. Which again raises some serious questions about the security at this particular mental hospital. Was the front door just open? Did he tell them he was going out for a smoke and just keep walking? He's now a fugitive. Again. The FBI, who are probably getting very, very tired of this guy, puts him on the 10 most wanted list. And this is where we get back to the clown. Because for 6 months, one of the most wanted men in America hides from the FBI by working as a traveling carnival clown. He's out there every day in a wig and full face paint, presumably making balloon animals, while J. Edgar Hoover is back in Washington, D.C., presumably tearing his hair out. This is a plan so stupid it's almost brilliant. It's hiding in plain sight, but the plain sight is a circus. Who would ever look for a fugitive at a carnival? The answer is the FBI. The FBI will look for a fugitive at a carnival. They get a tip, they show up in Atlanta, Georgia, and they arrest a clown. I would pay money to see the body cam footage of that arrest. The Great Escape is over. Leslie is sent back to Texas and sentenced to 15 years on a prison farm. And if you think this is the end of the story, you have not been paying attention. So Leslie does 5 years on a Texas prison farm, which sounds like the opposite of a good time. It's a place where you work in the hot Texas sun and your main companions are dirt, sweat, and other convicted felons. He gets out in 1970, and for a while, things are quiet. He's paid his debt to society, such as it is, and then, in 1981, Leslie undergoes gender confirmation surgery and becomes Leslie Elaine Perez. The person who was sentenced to death, who escaped a mental hospital, who was captured as a clown, is now a woman. The story has already been a roller coaster, and now it's doing a loop-the-loop and flying off the tracks. And what does one do after a life of crime, punishment, escape, and personal transformation? If you're Leslie Perez, you get into local politics, obviously. It's the next logical step. She becomes a fiery, outspoken activist in Houston's LGBTQ+ community. She becomes secretary of the Gay and Lesbian Political Caucus. And then, because why not, she runs for Democratic Party chair of Harris County, one of the largest, most powerful counties in the entire country. She runs not once, but twice, and comes in second. A former death row inmate, a former FBI most wanted fugitive, a former clown, almost became the head of the Democratic Party in one of America's biggest cities. Was she popular? Oh, heavens no. One fellow activist said she was a lightning rod for hostility, which is a polite way of saying everyone thought she was a disaster. Her past was, to put it lightly, complicated. She was a convicted murderer, a trans woman in 1980s Texas, and she had the political subtlety of a foghorn. She didn't fit neatly into anyone's box, and she refused to apologize for it. You have to admit, the woman had guts. She was out there, making speeches, shaking hands, and generally making everyone uncomfortable. You cannot write this stuff. Leslie Perez died in 2005. Carolyn Lima vanished. And we are left with this absolute mess of a story. A story that starts with a bad date and ends with a political campaign. A story that includes beatniks, drag queens, the death penalty, a bumbling escape, a clown costume, and a shocking amount of legal incompetence. It's a true crime story, but it's also a comedy of errors, a tragedy, a political drama. It's a reminder that sometimes the weirdest stories are the true ones. And that if you're ever on the run from the FBI, maybe, just maybe, don't hide in a circus. It's a terrible idea, trust me.